Kia ora. Nau mai, hara mai, kia tau mai ki tēnei wāhanga ko Auaha Live. Ngā mihi mai o hā kia koutou katoa. Ko Sandra Julian ahau ko Ngāti Mutunga, Ngāti Tama, Pautama, me te Atiawa o ku iwi no Taranaki. Kia ora and welcome to another episode of Auaha Live. I'm your host, Sandra Julian, founder of Auaha Business Event Agency and approved professional conference organizer. That's a whole mouthful in itself. If this is the first time you are joining us here, please drop us a comment. Let us know that you are here joining us live. You can ask us questions at any time. We'll be happy to answer them as we go or when we get to the end. In this space, so Auaha Live is a fortnightly Facebook Live show where I wanted to interview the many talented people that make up the business events industry here in Aotearoa. We are a dedicated industry and we can make fantastic things happen, and we're like little magicians. So I wanted to bring you interviews with all of these people that spend their lives behind the scenes making magic happen and bring them to you so we can have a real conversation so you can meet some of these people. I get to interact with them daily, weekly, with all of the events that we do all over the country, and everyone that we deal with, they are dedicated to the business events industry and to making magical experiences happen for delegates, both nationally and internationally. So we've had a few great guests on the show to date, and you can always go back and watch those previous episodes, either here on the Facebook group or over on our YouTube channel. But today's guest, he owns an event company that manages the Southern Hemisphere's largest enduro mountain bike race, as well as 2 World Enduro mountain bike events. That's a whole mouthful for me. But he started his career in the event space way back in 2002, where he worked for Surfing New Zealand. Today, and this is probably the most that I've had to do with him, he is the business events manager at Destination Rotorua, which is a role he's held for the last 5 years after moving back home from Wellington in mid-2015. So let me introduce you to Craig Murray. Craig, welcome to the show.
Kia ora, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent. Let's start by, why don't you introduce yourself and give people a bit of a background into what you do now and what that involves.
Ko Craig Murray taka ingoa, ki te ka whakahaere mō Business Events Destination Rotorua hau. My name's Craig. I'm currently the Business Events Manager at Destination Rotorua. As Sandra said, I also have an events company and we look after a number of different mountain bike and action sports events, but my primary role is looking after the business event space in Rotorua. So the easiest way that I like to describe what our role is for Rotorua is that we're like a broker for the destination, whereas if you're looking, or if someone's looking for a venue or some element of their event that they need some advice from, then we can reach out to all of our stakeholders, everyone in Rotorua, and find the solution that best fits the requirements of the event, whether it's a venue, accommodation, activities, helicopters, boats, you name it, we can help out.
Cool. And so are you focused on international mainly? Is that what your job revolves around, Craig? Or is it a mix of kind of national and international events?
So our events, over 90% of Rotorua's conferencing, specifically conference events, are domestic. Each year would have and then the split would be 5% Australian and then international sort of larger scale events that are in the association space. Association market's probably our biggest market. And then corporate after that, and and then you would look into like team building and incentive events, which is starting to become more and more popular, specifically over the last sort of 3 months.
And I mean, Rotorua's got all of the attractions for that whole incentive market to be quite a nice place to go.
Certainly is. We're blessed with a number of different activity options and attractions that we can incorporate into any type of program, whether it's team building, luxury incentive or incentive for your team, conferencing, pre and post activity options, or you have a half day conference and then half day activities, or a mix and match of those. So yeah, we're very, very lucky here. We've also got a huge amount of accommodation ranging from like your backpackers right through to the new 5-star hotels and some luxury super lodges that we have here in Rotorua as well. So we are very, very lucky with what we've got.
Yeah, definitely. And what would you say the biggest event would be that Rotorua could hold or host?
Conferencing?
Yeah, conferencing.
Or the energy event centre can host anywhere up to 4,000 delegates in a theatre style, and we've got the accommodation nearby, like almost walkable, to accommodate that as well. Typically, in a sort of a calendar year, would host events ranging from sort of like small, like 5-10 people, right up to 2,000 people each year. Not many 4,000 delegate conferences around, or there's none that have come to the door anyway. The largest international conference that we've had recently was the Auaha, which is that's the acronym, but it's International Union for Health Promotion and Education, and that was about health and wellness, of holistic health and wellness, not just your health of your body, but the health of your city and how it connects to all the elements around you as well. That was a really cool and successful event as well. We worked on that one for a while. It must have been 5 years from the initial sort of opportunity coming through, and then site visits for mills, tender process, working right with Tourism New Zealand the whole way through as well. And then finally they chose Rotorua over a number of different international locations, and it worked out to be awesome.
So what does that look like now that this whole COVID is just taken over the world and really affected the events industry big time? What is that now looking like for Destination Rotorua?
A lot of the events that we had in the pipeline, let's say, or confirmed for this calendar year and the beginning of next day, a lot of them we're lucky where a lot of them have just rescheduled. But if the international events that are on like a 3-year or 4-year rotation, then we have lost a couple of those that hopefully will come back in the future or may not. That's very much up to the association. But we've had a lot of reschedules rather than cancels, which is really cool. Some of the smaller ones have when I say smaller, probably under the hundreds, they decided to not have them at all, and then next year they already had their venue and location locked in already, so they just go with that one, and then Rotorua might have been put ahead of the if, as an example, if they were north south, they might have gone north for two years in a row rather than north south, just to help us out. So everyone's been pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I personally like that people are postponing and just moving their events rather than taking this approach of let's just cancel and not do anything. So have you seen everyone no events in this year? You've got no events happening this year over in Rotorua that you're aware of? No,
we're still having a lot of events. There was a conference last Thursday there was a conference in Rotorua. It was Wednesday, Thursday. It was just over 200 delegates. That was really cool. Yeah, so Lisa Hopkins, the SIN CEO, was in town actually, and we were showcasing Rotorua to her, and we're in Novotel actually, and they had a conference in, which was awesome. They couldn't show us any of the conference space, and the hotel was completely booked out rooms wise, so it was really positive to have that. But however, then that night everything sort of changed. Okay.
Yeah, let's hope that it doesn't change again for the worse, and we just end back down on level 1 again. That'd be quite nice.
Yeah, great.
All right, let's dive into your background, because I'm like, how did you end up here in business events? When sporting, obviously working for Surfing New Zealand and then mountain biking being your passion, how come you didn't end up down that line and you've ended up over here in business events? So talk me through a bit of your background of where you started from.
Okay, so so I went to Waikato University, and a long time ago now, 20 years ago, and I studied sport and leisure. And I had in my third year, I had a practicum with Surfing New Zealand, and I worked with them, and I started helping out with some of the some of their surf events. I was living in Raglan, which was quite cool. I'm a surfer, and it was and the headquarters of Surfing New Zealand were in Raglan as well. So I helped out with some of the sort of coordinating the events, and then they have a lot of events each year. So I got picked up, I suppose, by one of the agencies that was managing other events. So I was the jack of all. I did emceeing, I did, I suppose, brands, setting up marquees, bringing them down. I was looking after all the surfers to ensure that they're in the right heats and things like that. And then I moved to looking after international surfing events. I helped managing it, and then I got pulled into a team who were managing events for Saatchi and Saatchi. So we did a really cool one for Tui, the brewery Tui. It was a forceback competition in Mangatanoka. It was awesome. And then I sort of did a little bit of that, still did a little bit of stuff with Surfing New Zealand, but then I got a job with Coca-Cola, and I was in the sales space, so I was sort of went away from that a little bit, but I still did really enjoy running events and working in the event space. So I decided to take over a lease of a basement in Hamilton and turn it into an events-based music venue. So I developed, me and one of my close friends, Hayden, him and I developed a music-focused events-based bar in Hamilton, or / nightclub, and it was quite cool. So for 5 years, so I worked for Surfing New Zealand for about 4 years. And at the same time I worked with Coca-Cola, and then I took on a nightclub, and we developed that into a company called Flow Entertainment, where we hosted probably about 200 or 300 different events in there over a 4-year period. With and most of them are ticketed events. Hamilton didn't really have a ticketed nightclub scene, and we worked in collaboration with a number of different nightclubs in New Zealand to bring in international artists. So the likes of Phil and Zen in Auckland, us in Hamilton, worked with Flow. There was Sandwiches in Wellington, Subculture in Queenstown, and Sammy's in Dunedin. I think it was Dunedin. Sometimes we put money in, or we helped out a promoter to bring an artist over from UK or something, and then dubstep and drum and bass were quite big then, so they still are, but would bring an international artist through and roll them through the country, and that's sort of how I got into that side of events and music and sound and PAs and things like that, and lighting. Post that, at the same time, my partner, still now Julia, was living in Wellington. I was living in Raglan, and that's a long distance relationship that doesn't really work that well. So I picked up a role with Positively Wellington Venues. So that was, at the time, it was part of, I was a council controlled trading organisation. So they looked after the town hall, the Wellington Town Hall, the Michael Fowler Centre, Opera House, St James, TSB Bank Arena, Shed 6, and the Academy of Fine Arts. Mm-hmm. And the team's role was to put as many events as we possibly could into them, whether it was conferencing, ticketed events, operas, and those types of shows. But my focus was primarily based on conference and business. It wasn't called business events then. It was called like when I had my job interview, and they asked me what I knew about the mice industry. I didn't have any idea what mice actually meant. Yeah. But I ended up getting the job and moved down to Wellington, and I was down there for 5 years, working with the team in Wellington, which was very, very, very awesome. So it was called Positively Wellington Venues. That was Glennis Coughlin was the CEO at the time, and then it got merged into what it is now, I still believe, which is REDA, the Wellington Regional Economic Development Agency, for no other reason apart from an awesome opportunity up in Rotorua. Was advertised, and I was like, well, we had Tale, which is our daughter who's 7 now. We didn't have much of a family unit down in Wellington, and I'm from Rotorua, born and raised, and my sisters and my family are all up here. So I gave Oscar Nathan a call, who was advertising the role, and said, look, I'm actually mountain biking in Rotorua at the moment. I know I'm too late. The applications have closed, but can I have a crack at the job? And got it. So at the time, the role was slightly different to what it is now. So I was employed as the sales manager for the Energy Event Centre, and at the same time being the Computer Bureau manager.
Right.
Then they had a couple of realignments, and you'll probably know Warren and Warren Harvey, who's the sales manager of Energy Event Centre, and then I'm sort of more focused on just purely on business events. We're an impartial team. We don't have any membership or anything like that, so we work fairly on representing the whole destination. So that's sort of in short how I got into this space. But I've always sort of liked doing a number of things. As you can tell, I was working with New Zealand, Coca-Cola, and ran a nightclub. I was down in Wellington, still owned a nightclub. Then we sort of finished that up, and I worked for Destination Rotorua, or Road Economic Development, and I also have an events company where we run a number of different mountain bike races and action sports events. So on Mondays and Fridays, I sort of focus on those ones. So the one at the moment, we actually sold that event out in 7 days, 1,600 entries. It's a mountain bike race in the Whakarerodeo forest. So you have up to sort of 8 stages in the forest at any one time, and 600 riders. So you've just got to manage how to get them, patch them up when they fall over, and yeah. That's what we do. It's
crazy that you do these massive mountain bike races just like a side hustle.
Yes, it sort of was a side hustle, but now I've got quite a structured team, and we contract in different people to do different elements of the registration and the race management, like on the course management. We have first response team, so we have 2 different teams in first response, because as you can imagine, there's 600 people going down 6 or 7 different trails at race pace. There's always going to be some broken bones or some injuries, so we've got to make sure that we can get there as quick as possible to get them back on their feet, or fix them up, or get them to the emergency department as quickly and safely as possible.
Yeah.
I also have 4 buses going at the same time, taking people to the top. So that's a lot going on. DJs.
So are they just like 2 separate events that you run every year at different times in the year, or are they multiple, like it's one name but you run it multiple times over a year? Are they?
So the Giant 2W Gravity Enduro is a series, so it's 3 events in that one. And then last year I was lucky enough to be part of the Crankworks Festival, and so I managed the Giant Tour Enduro, that was a Asia Pacific Enduro World Series event.
Wow.
So which is a tier 2 level world event. That was just a little under 400 entrants in that, and that's that was, I suppose, a lot more international riders racing that one. And saying that though, the 3rd race of last year's Giant 2W was a World Enduro Series event as well. So so they have slightly different criteria and requirements to manage those. It's not too. We run events in New Zealand really, really, really well, so we don't have to change too many things to accommodate the criteria of World Series events. Some timing things and just some race rules are a little bit different.
Yeah. So how did you get into mountain biking enduro along that journey?
So I'll give you so what enduro style of mountain biking is it's basically you only get timed on your downs. So you've got, let's say, so you have a timing chip on your you can have air gates, which is just a chip that you go through the gate and then it automatically timestamps you at the top and the bottom, and that's your time. Right. Or you have this other one where it's a little thing that goes on, you wraps around your finger and you dab it into a little. Where's my hand? There it is. You dab it into a little thing, and that captures the time there. and you've got like 4.5 or 6.5 hours to do. Well, there's 4 different types of events. Oh, sorry, 2 different types of events happening in the one event. So there's a short course, which is anywhere between 4 and 6 stages, or the long course, which is anywhere between 6 and 8 stages. So they have 6.5 hours to do the whole course, but the only time that gets captured is the time that they do on the downs. So, and the person who has the least amount of times on the downs is the quickest, because they did the quickest. How I got into that was when I moved down to Wellington from Raglan. Even the surf in Wellington, when it's really, really good, is a rubbish day in Raglan. So I decided to go pick up mountain biking, and and Wellington's awesome. For mountain biking, there's all these different trail networks just right in the city. So I lived in Orangatai, and I worked in the bottom of the Maikavela Centre, so I had to go over Mount Vic to get to work. So I could ride mountain bike trails to work and home from work. So I did that, and then just when I moved up to Rotorua, most of my friends are in that space. So Ariki Tibble, Tuck Mutu, they're the Crankworks team, I suppose. And so they just asked if I could help out with a couple of events. So last season I took on the 2W, not knowing how to run a mountain bike event, but it's just an event. So
yeah. And at the end of the day, it's an event. It's got different components to it because it's a mountain bike event, but at the end of the day, it's an event, right? That base structure of what you're doing is pretty much the same regardless of the type of event that you do, just small tweaks.
Yeah, 100%. So it's just project managing a different style of event then.
Yeah.
Whereas there's slightly more risk.
Totally more risk.
In the first race, I was freaking out waiting for the first person to go down, and because you were all on radios and you hear like medic, and you're like, oh goodness, what's going on? And like someone's knocked themselves out or someone's broken a bone, and but that's just the nature of the business. That's the risk, and that's why everyone does it, because there's a massive level of managed risk.
Adrenaline, management and adrenaline and doing it.
Cool. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that's
you did, because I'm like, okay, how do you go from mountain biking to awesome. So your role, like those are just 2 separate roles, like sporting and endurance and adrenaline role, and then this kind of little safe role that you have at Destination Rotorua. So are you there full time, or is it part-time with part-time running endurance races?
Yeah, so I'm in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and then on the phone or email anytime, anywhere for Destination Rotorua.
Right. So
I suppose I've got a set amount of hours I get paid for in Rotorua, and that changes based on sort of, if, like as an example, if SINs are having meetings or I'm going to a trade show, then I'd go to a trade show, and then whatever day of the week it is, I'd do that.
Nice. So flexibility with your job, that's great.
Yeah. So Michelle Templar is was our CEO. She's been seconded into another role at the moment, but she was pretty comfortable with me and doing what I'm doing now, with the way I'm doing it now. And it works for me because I like being quite busy and doing things. Keeps the mind creative,
diverse in what you do. So you also recently started a podcast. What was the prompt behind that?
I really love podcasting and listening to podcasts and Audible as well. So listen to books. So why not? Why not add another thing to do? But I haven't, to be honest, done too many of them now. I had a bit of a health issue. So I podcasted one of my friends who's the event director for Crankworks, and then he decided to podcast me, and then I've got a few more people who I'm planning on doing in the next few months. But I need to put that one back on the list today. So it's called Intrinsic Motivation. So very much the ethos about the podcast is what drives people to do things, and what gets their fires burning, and gets him up in the morning, and finding people's backstory about how they got to where they are as well, which is sort of what you just did as well.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting. So the one I did at Ariki, if you haven't listened to it, tune in. It's on Spotify. But he's got a really cool story, and it's quite emotional at some parts of it and what he's gone through.
I did have a listen to that one. It was nice. It was a nice conversation. Like, it was just a conversation. But yeah, listening to his background and what he's doing now is just like, anything's achievable when you set your mind to it. When you have a purpose that you want to fulfill, and then that path just is a calling for you. That was a really good episode. I enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, good. So more episodes to come, hey?
There will be more. Yeah, I've got some really cool people lined up who have agreed to do it, but everything's changing week by week, day by day, I suppose, as well. So people's time, they're a little bit more time poor. They've got to put these priorities in business and things like that. So I need to be self-aware and empathetic to the people's time as well. So I'm just like, I'm not pushing anything.
Yeah. So everyone that follows you on LinkedIn knows that you recently had your health scare, which is like, whoa, you're too young to be going through all of that. So do you want to give us a little bit of an update of where you're at with your health?
So just under 4 months ago, I had open heart surgery to replace an aortic valve in my heart. That apparently I had an issue from, well, I did have it, not apparently. Doctors found that I had an issue from when I was born. So yeah, my health's pretty good. My doctors, my surgeon specifically, he's pretty impressed with the recovery and how my body's recovered. Not so much what I've done, but internally what my body's done to recover. So yeah, my heart's ticking away now. I've got a titanium valve to replace. Obviously, everyone has a tissue aortic valve. So I've got a titanium and carbon piece in my heart that sometimes you can hear it ticking away, pushing the oxygenated blood. But as long as it's ticking, I'm happy. If it stops ticking, I'm in trouble.
Yeah. Okay, so partly bionic now.
Yeah, I'm steampunk.
Nice. All right. Over all of that exciting career, like, you've had such a varied career, and some great roles and some great businesses that you've got up and running and off the ground and done some fantastic things. What is your one aha moment that you've had over time that's kind of made you stop and think?
Stop and think about why, like, the one where I almost died 4 months ago is probably one that's made me stop and think. That's one aha moment. Actually, I can talk about that moment too, actually, because there was a time when I realized that I was in hospital, that, when you realize that you're not invincible, or you're not like, things aren't going as you thought they were to go. And I specifically said to myself in my mind that you've got two ways to deal with the current scenario that you're in. I could either act like I'm the victim of a circumstance that shouldn't be me, or I'm too young, or why me, and be sad about it, or look at it and say, well, this is what's happened. Like, there's a 3% chance that I die, so that means there's a 97% chance that I'm going to live. Yeah. Which is way better way of thinking. So, and look at it as being a pivotal part of my life. And so what I ended up doing was reading a lot. So I think I read like 9 books while I was in hospital. Well, I didn't read them, actually. I just used Audible. Yeah. Audible was amazing. Yeah. I agree. And so I just started reading a lot about Stoicism, to be honest. Marcus Aurelius, and there's a guy who's got a book called The Obstacle is the Way, which is the first one I read, which was it's primarily about, like, if you've got an obstacle, you can look at it. And my obstacle, everyone has an obstacle, whether it's COVID, whether it's something else, or whether your business is on the brink of falling over. That's your obstacle, and how you deal with that is really up to your mind. And you can either act like it's the victim and everything's someone else's fault, or you can just move and then change and then use it as a pivotal point in your life to be better. And so yeah, so I suppose my most recent aha moment was, I'll tell you the date. That was the Wednesday after Easter Monday, whatever day that was, whatever date that was. And that was the most recent one. Yeah, another one I had actually I can remember vividly as well, and it was 25th of February 2007.
Wow, that's quite specific.
It was very specific, yeah, and it was a time when I realized that music and events is the thing that I definitely want to do. And it was about 4 a.m, and I was at one of my good mates actually, Brian Kōrero, he's and his wife and I, they organised an event called Soundsplash in Radler.
Yeah.
It's a big festival. It was then. It stopped for about 5 years, and then now it's back selling out again, which is cool. The event was running probably 3-4 hours late, hence why it was probably at 4 a.m. And Shapeshifter was playing. It was a full moon. All my friends were around me, and I was like, this sort of experience is what I want to try and create, and be part of me forever. So that was another. I actually remember the song too, Long White Cloud, Shapeshifter playing. That's pretty cool.
And that's when you decided that this is what you want to do.
Yeah, I was already doing it anyway, but but it was like, oh, well, I think I want to create like a music festival. And I haven't done that yet, but I definitely will be doing a music festival in the next couple of years, that's for sure.
Oh, exciting. Watch this space. So when everyone just knows you as Craig is the destination manager of Destination Rotorua, they are just missing a whole layer below that of all this other exciting stuff that you've got your fingers in. Yeah,
but it's all events, and I love specifically my role Destination Rotorua. I love it just because the business events specifically is it benefits the community so much, especially over that period of time in Rotorua when tourism over the sort of January, May to sort of end of September, October, November is quieter, and then so it brings in like up to 130,000 room nights and over $50 million worth of business to Rotorua in the time just when we need it. And I like to think that I'm a little bit of a help for the community to bring events and help with everyone around. So yeah, I really do like that part of it too. So it's a different way of thinking about it. It's not like just getting a conference in. It's about the supply chain that helps the conference be successful. And the delivery drivers, the service stations, the people who have the chickens for the free range eggs, that all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, nice. I like that. All right. Before we wrap up, have you got anything else that you'd like to share with our audience, or anything you want to plug for Destinations Rotorua?
Everyone should bring their conference to Rotorua.
Yeah,
the best destination in the world.
We love coming to Rotorua. When we hold events, they seem to be in cycles. So some years, most of our events will be in Wellington, then some years, most of them will be in Auckland. So it's not like that we plan our events that way strategically, but they seem to land and we spend different amounts of time in different cities. And so over the last 2 years, I think we've had, must be a good 50% of our events over in Rotorua. We love it. We love it. We love it too. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And the venues that we've got to use have always been really good. So the supply chain over there is amazing. So yeah, love it. All right, Craig, thanks so much for joining me here today and sharing your backstory. There's way more of a conversation to be had. So if anyone's wanting to know anything more about mountain biking or endurance events or sporting events, or wants to hook you up with that music event that you're going to do, then go check with Craig.
LAB's listening in.
I'll put all Craig's contact details in the comments below once we're finished. All right. Thanks heaps, Craig. Talk to you soon.
Cool. Have a good day.
All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I learned heaps, even though I've known Craig for a wee while now. So if you would like to join us again here for the next conversation, we'll be back in a fortnight. So the show is here every other Friday at 12:30, if I can get that out right. And next show, I will be interviewing Raywin Teast. She has had, again, a varied career and has held multiple positions within the business events industry. So that will be another great conversation to tune into. But for now, that's us for this time, for this show. Go and enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a lovely weekend. Kia pai o koutou rā wakata, mā te wā.